He has played in 23 productions on Broadway and has recorded several soundtracks for several major films. For 7 years, he was a member of the percussion trio Timetable, a group committed to commissioning and performing new works for percussion. Joe has composed a number of internationally recognized works for snare drum and for the New York Philharmonic, Cleveland Orchestra, and Atlanta Symphony percussion sections. But I'm not finished, and that is not enough accomplishments. Joe also has given master classes throughout the U.S. and Europe. So please relax and enjoy, as it is now my pleasure to turn the evening over to Joe. It's all yours, Joe.
And okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this evening's webinar. I see Ashley is hosting tonight, and I want to thank her for helping me. I've had a few technical difficulties. I can't actually see you at the moment, but I'm going to change my video here so that I can. So we'll just continue with the topic at hand, which is keeping the arts alive in a pandemic. I really never thought that I would be hosting a webinar with that topic. And it's certainly a very challenging time for all of us. So the first thing I want to say is I hope that you and your families are all well. And the percussion faculty, Mike Truesdell, Javier Diaz, Ian Sullivan, and myself all send you our best wishes. The overriding theme in my talk will be to embrace what you love to do now more than ever. And I think it's important to think of this in 3 levels. If you're an artist, there we go. If you're an artist and you're, for example, an alumnus of Mason Gross, and you're trying to find a way to create your art right now, I think the first thing we should think about is you need to be healthy. You need to create healthy patterns in your daily routine to be productive. So that means you have to take care of yourself. And for me, that means strengthening my skills as a percussionist. So I thought it might be good to just demonstrate what a percussionist does. Just for 5 minutes, it'll lighten the mood just a little bit. Our topic is a bit heavy. I'm going to lower this so you can actually see what I'm doing. Percussionists strike things with sticks. We also scrape things with our hands and with brushes and things like that. And we shake things. We play hundreds of instruments. I'm only going to be playing a few of them for you tonight. It's all that I could fit into my basement. But you'll see this is the snare drum that I'm playing here. I strike this drum with sticks, and it sounds like this. I'll take my headphones off so I don't get tangled up. This is what a snare drum sounds like. You better brace yourself. So that is a snare drum. And, you know, one thing you have to have if you're a percussionist is a very understanding spouse. As you can see, it's quite loud. this is only one of, like I said, many instruments that a percussionist might play. When we went into this lockdown mode, I think many students were scrambling to try to find instruments that they could take with them home. In fact, I was teaching people within the first week of the pandemic in Taiwan, Korea, China, London, and Amsterdam, and everybody just split and went home. So we had to come up with some creative ways to approach these lessons that were online. And like I said, one of the things we can do is shake our instruments. So some students were able to build homemade shakers, and this is just a regular Coke can. So you can really come up with some creative approaches to how you can keep your art alive at home. And this is what percussionists need to do in this particular circumstance. Just to show you the most complete arsenal of percussion, we have sent you a link that should be in your email. It's to a performance by myself and faculty member Michael Truesdell. And we're performing with Greg Riss, who was a graduate student at the time. He had just left the graduate program in Nicholas Auditorium. So if you want to sort of have old home week and see Nicholas, this piece is in your inbox right now, and it's a YouTube video of a piece by Mason Bates called Stereo is King. So that is about a 12-minute piece. So you can check that out and see the wide array of percussion instruments that are at our fingertips. So creating a healthy way forward for you, if you're an artist, and even if you're just a patron of the arts, I think there are a few things that I would recommend in this time of challenges. The first is a gratitude list. Find at least one thing each day that you're grateful for and articulate that idea. Mine is certainly many days my wife and I get to take a walk together in the afternoon. We never had time to do that when we were concertizing more. And I think that that's something that I definitely am grateful for. It helps me to make music. When we return from those walks, I feel like creating something, and that's a positive energy. So a gratitude list. Second, ask yourself this question: how can I be better after this situation than I was before? It's sometimes difficult to answer that question or even ask it because there's a lot of darkness and there are many challenges coming at us. But pick, for example, a project to work on that will improve you as an artist, whether you're a visual artist, a dancer, a musician, or an actor or an actress, okay? For me, one of those projects was when this hit. I've been on sabbatical this semester, and I was completing a book. When this hit, I was in the final stages of completing the book, which required quite a bit of editing and recording. I eventually did the recording in the house here. We're in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. Just had to figure out a way to continue the project. And I was finally able to complete that project on May 1st. And then I felt like I had nothing to do for a few days. And I actually started talking to my students and alumni and saying, hey, what are you working on right now? And, you can exchange that information and it can spur you on to the next project. And I'm happy to report that I now have a new project. So the third thing is try something new as an artist. We're all relatively confined here. So learn something new, try something new. It doesn't have to even be artistically related. Something positive. Maybe you could work on cooking. I'm working on jazz harmony, which is something I've been interested in for a few years. So something new and something challenging, but something that broadens your horizons. And the last thing I'll say is know that you're not alone. We are all connected, especially here in the Rutgers community. So call a friend, see what they're doing, make sure they're doing well. And like I said, you can bounce ideas off of each other. I've been lifted up by talking to all of the students over the phone and, connecting with them. And I'm looking forward to seeing them over the summer. We've set up 4 sessions on Zoom where all of the percussion students will chime in, and I'm gonna be leading 4 classes over the summer just for fun. And I think that is gonna help me as an artist. So that's how you can grow individually, I think, in this very challenging time. I'd like to add one more thing to my gratitude list. And this is, unfortunately, we lost a colleague last week, Darrell Bock, who was an amazing person. I think many of you probably knew him. Darrell was the director of bands for a while at Rutgers and an outstanding musician and great friend. He had a long battle with cancer, and we lost him last week. I'd like to play a piece for Darrell. This is called Songbird, and the subtitle is Thank You for Your Lovely Song. Darrell was very interested in jazz, and like I said, I've been dabbling on piano. I'd like to just do this for him, and this is Songbird. Okay, that's for Darrell Bock. Let's go to the second topic here, artistic collaborations online. We were talking about the individual, how the individual artist can cope in these situations. Collaborations are possible online, and staying connected with fellow artists, fellow students. Like I said, lessons, it's amazing what you can do. A new paradigm was created very quickly, and my faculty colleagues who were teaching, I've been on sabbatical as I mentioned, really reacted quickly to try to figure out ways to connect with students. I'd like to mention in particular, Dr. Javier Diaz, who was leading the percussion program, created a video of Steve Reich's Music for Pieces of Wood, which was a piece that Reich wrote in 1973. Reich was one of the founders of this movement called minimalism. And he was infatuated with African drumming, specifically Ghanaian drumming. And in Ghana, there's a group of drummers, a tribe of drummers, Ewe, that layer rhythms on top of each other. And Reich was influenced by this. And he wrote this piece, Music for Pieces of Wood, that Dr. Diaz was able to record with our students remotely in their homes. And then he was able to take their performances using Logic, which is an audio program, line up their performances exactly with the click track. And I'd like to play you this 3-minute, this is half of the piece. This is Music for Pieces of Wood. Okay, so that was the first half of the piece. It's a constructive, deconstructive, and then reconstructive kind of format there. And I thought it was amazing that Dr. Diaz was able to do that remotely. So it is possible with virtual and online learning to construct these kind of performances. We have to rethink the delivery. It doesn't obviously have the same feeling as being right next to somebody playing that piece, which is, by the way, extremely difficult. So let's give the students a round of applause. But we're doing what we can, and we're rethinking the delivery here. The other faculty have been online submitting videos to, for example, Facebook. Ian Sullivan's put up Chick Corea's children's songs and collaborated with people in Asia and elsewhere, and it has been able to sync up these two overlapping parts. So we know what we can't do. When we watch television, we're reminded of that every day. But the question is, what can we do? And the answer, I think, is quite a bit. So collaborative efforts, certainly a way to keep the arts alive in a pandemic. Here's the final category to discuss, and this is where I think it would be interesting for you to chime in with questions and answers here. The final hurdle will be returning to the stage with a live audience. If you're a dancer, if you're an opera singer, if you're a Broadway actor, if you're a symphonic musician, that is the big question. When can we return to the stage? My last performance with the New York Philharmonic was it was an open rehearsal on March 12th in the morning, and the executive, the director, the leader of the Philharmonic, Deborah Borda, gave a speech to the orchestra before this rehearsal, and she said, "We will be back. If there needs to be a break, we'll break, but we will be back." And I think her words are true, and I think it's just a question of when. So be ready. Be ready to be back and bring your artistry to a hungry public. Imagine that first performance that you'll participate in and the power of that. And this is the time now to be preparing for that, to be a part of that power and that energy. And I look forward to the return of that energy. It's the thing that I missed most, which is the collaboration on stage and the personal communication with the audience. So we're going to keep the faith that will come back sooner rather than later. And as a friend of mine said, every day that we go through this, we're one day closer to figuring out a solution. So with that, I would like to open this webinar up to your questions. And Ashley is going to moderate. So if you have any specific questions, I can't purport to answer them necessarily, all of them, but I would be happy to try, and we could open a discussion. I know that my parents are on this webinar watching, and they probably are wondering, their question is probably, why did you wear that shirt? But I'm not going to answer that.
Ian is off mute and has a question.
Okay.
Hi, Joe. It's Ian Sullivan.
Ian, how you doing?
Good. You were talking about jazz harmony. I'm wondering what you're doing to work on jazz harmony.
Oh, boy. I am working on a book by a guy named Mark Levine, and it's called The Jazz Piano Book. And it's a really slow process for me. But Ian also, I know you've been working on this too. And it's something that, by the way, I should point out, Ian is the principal timpanist of the New York City Ballet Orchestra, and he's on our faculty. And he's very talented as a percussionist as well. We both like to study jazz harmony to sort of expand our horizons. So I've been working on the Mark Levine book a lot, and one of my goals is to come up with exercises that I can translate to classical keyboards. So I've started working on that a little bit, and like I said, it's a pretty slow process.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
One other thing I can say is while we're waiting for another question, come on with your questions. We live out in the Poconos. Like I said, we're in Pennsylvania. We have an apartment in New York, and we left very quickly to come out here. And we have a lot of deer in the yard. And when my wife's a violinist, when she practices the violin, the deer come right up to the window. They're very curious. They actually fog up the window watching her practice. When I play the snare drum, they take off. It's kind of amazing how quickly they split. And I was at the store the other day and I saw something called deer repellent. I thought, I don't need to buy that. I've got a snare drum. You know, they just run right away. So saves you some money.
Dan has a question for you, Joe.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, it's Dan Monty.
It's Dan Monty. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, and I'm glad to see that you're doing all right, too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you and your wife share space in terms of practicing. You know, like, she probably doesn't like to hear snare drum when she's playing violin.
That's correct. You're correct.
How do you manage that?
Okay. Well, I use a practice pad for anything that's loud. So what I played tonight, I don't play every day on the snare drum. I use practice pads for loud stuff, and then I play my soft stuff on a real drum. But when I'm playing that soft, she can't even hear it. The other thing that's good is that we have a 3-story house. So I go to the top, and she goes downstairs, and it's like, you know, we're separate. But you're right. It's a real challenge. Let me show you something that I got. If there are any percussionists on this webinar that want to check this out, this is a DW practice kit with a couple books on it, but it's a DW practice kit, and I got it. It's $189. I was actually clued in on by a colleague because I said, I really want to play drum set. And that was the thing that was a drag. I was missing that the most. So I got this DW practice kit, which you can barely hear, but you can still feel. And I'd recommend that if there are drummers on this webcast here that are looking for something to work on that kind of coordination, it's really liberating to have that practice kit.
Sure, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, Dan. Good to hear you.
Yeah, you too.
Joe, it's Lynn Christian. When I introduced you, I talked about the percussion trio Timetable. How did you get involved with them? How did that come about?
That's a good question. So Timetable, well, I went to the Manhattan School of Music for my master's degree. I went to the Eastman School of Music for my undergrad. I was extremely orchestral. I thought that's the only thing I really want to do when I'm in school. And when I graduated from the Manhattan School, I had played some new music, but I wasn't really proficient with it to the level that I knew I needed to be. So about 3 years after I graduated, I got in touch with 2 friends of mine who were outstanding new music percussionists, and we formed this trio. I was sort of the longest learning curve, and for me, it was a growth experience to try that because, like I said, I was very orchestral. So we were together. Our group was together for 7 or 8 years. And we commissioned somewhere in the range of 25 pieces, I think, from New York composers. And it was very beatnik kind of hippie activity. Like we would throw all of our drums into 3 cars and drive down to the Bowery Poetry Club and just play for 10 people. But our rehearsals it was like 70 hours of practice for a concert for 10 people. There were other concerts that were bigger than that, but it was really a labor of love, and it expanded my rhythmic horizons. It became a little bit difficult as I got older to keep throwing the stuff in the car and going down. But I'm really glad that I did that. And my colleagues, I should mention, in that group were Matt Ward and Matt Gold, who are both still active performers. And last Friday, the Talujan Percussion Group put a concert on YouTube Live, and it was really outstanding. As another example of what you can pull off. they played some really cool pieces, and they were all in different places, and it was a live feed. So it was great to see those guys again.
Skylar has a question for you.
Skylar.
Hey, Joe.
How you doing, man?
Yes.
This is like old home week.
I know, for real. So my question for you is, like, do you have like a kind of regimen going on, like either daily or weekly, like what kind of stuff you work on a particular day, or how much of this, how much of that? I think I'm just trying to find like a good way to fall into like a steady routine to make sure I'm not, practicing the same thing every day.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of people are feeling that. It's like, what can I do to keep this going? Because we don't know how long we're going to be doing this. There are a couple things that I'm doing every day. I start with the things that I'm weakest at first, because my brain is fresh. And like Ian said, jazz harmony, I'll start with theory first, and I'm just playing through like chord progressions, 2-5-1s, and things like that. They're just, mind-boggling with different bass movement and all that. Start with the hard stuff first, that you don't really, that feels, like it's a challenge. The next thing I do is I have a 1-hour soft routine that I do, because I really would like to come out of this with better soft playing. When I was in school, I practiced a lot soft playing, but when I performed a lot, I didn't have as much time to do that. So now's the time to do it. So I have a 1-hour routine. If you want to, I'll email you, because we're going to do a class on this later, and I'll get all the alumni involved.
Awesome.
But anyway, so that takes about 2 hours. And then believe it or not, I play accessories a lot.
Nice.
And you're not going to believe this. Kelly loves this. Yeah. So that's another way to keep deer out of your yard.
Yeah.
But just like, just a little bit on those, where it might be something that, like, typically you might not have enough time to do that. If you did 10 minutes or 15 minutes on that, by the end of the summer, it's, that kind of thing. And then I just do fun stuff. Like I was talking to Misha Austin, and she might even be on this, I don't know, but she's doing Tommy Igoe's Hands for a Lifetime.
Right. Yeah.
And I really like that, because it's just all charted out, and it keeps your chops going. I'm sure there are other things that people could do. So my dilemma right now is I don't have a mallet instrument, so I'm going back to New York a week from now, and I'm going to get a keyboard and bring it out, and then I'll start doing 4 mallet stuff. But yeah, and then I would mix it up, I guess, because it's you can't do the same routine for 3 months and be fresh. So
right.
That's what I would say. Good
right.
Good to hear your voice, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Blaze now has a question for you.
Sure.
Blaze, mute. Hi, Blaze, you're off mute now. Oh. We'll go to Adam has a question.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Adam, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
So you kind of answered my question already, but how would you suggest getting some mallet practice in without buying an instrument?
Do you have a piano?
Yeah.
Is that all you have?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so you have a piano. I think one thing you can do at the piano that that would help your mallet playing, regardless of, we're not talking about Lee Stevens' book here, but just chord recognition, just seeing patterns at the piano. The more you play the piano, the better it's going to be when you get back to a xylophone or marimba or vibraphone. So I'm trying to do that as much as I can. I play a lot of tunes, and I'm also working on, like I was saying before with Ian's question, I'm working on writing a series of exercises that maybe someday will become a book that I'm creating at the piano that use different, like, sticking permutations through chord progressions, so it would be like these kind of double lateral strokes just through chord progressions and things like that. Obviously, I'm not in a marimba, But if you're mentally seeing those patterns, when you get back to the marimba, I think that's half the battle, you know?
Yeah.
So the hands are part of it. The other thing that I saw was the guy at University of Texas, Austin, Brian Zader, has been putting up these cool exercises on Facebook. It's called the Marimba Minute. And he says he has practice routines on Facebook that you might be able to see in the archives or whatever, that he has outlined sticking exercises. If you get 4 mallets, you could play on a table.
Oh, nice.
So you don't actually need all of the keys. You can be you're just working on technique, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can extend that a little bit, you know, like you could put 2 boards in front of you. One is the black keys, one is the white keys. I remember one time, this is before the pandemic, but I was on tour and I needed to play Rain Tree when I got back and I didn't have a vibraphone. I actually cut out a vibraphone with paper and put it on a bed, and I practiced all of the notes on the bed.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's a little weird, but I mean, I don't know if that would be a good long-term solution. I think the piano is your best way to go, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Good to hear you.
Yeah, you too.
And Sean has a question.
Okay.
Hey,
Sean,
Joe.
you're off mute.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
So my question is pretty similar to a question that's already asked, but I wrote in the chat, I've been trying to maintain a regular practice routine to keep myself productive, but do you have any suggestions on how to make it like feel more motivating and valuable?
Yeah, similar to Skylar's question. I think that's going to depend on a lot of factors, because I know that some days I don't feel motivated, and other days I'm like, let's go get them, you know. So it's gonna depend on the day for you, but I would write everything down. I would write it in on a piece of paper. This is my practice routine. So you have something that's concrete, not just sort of randomly trying this and maybe I'll do it tomorrow. If you skip something, you'll see it, you know. So if you have a list of things that you're going to work on, that's a good way to keep yourself on track. I would listen to music, you know, to inspire your playing, because we can't just isolate ourselves, and we certainly have access to Spotify and Pandora and all that stuff. So try to find something you've never like really checked out before that might inspire you. For me, the other day I was listening to Hank Jones and Kenny Clark. The Hank Jones trio. I hadn't really ever checked that out. I mean, I've heard Kenny Clark many times, but it's that kind of thing is really invigorating. So it can really boost your playing.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe, it's Linda again. Were you teaching this semester?
No, I was on sabbatical. And so I was in touch with Dr. Diaz, who was leading the department. When this happened, we started communicating quite a bit. But Dr. Diaz led the program through to the end of the semester. So yeah, I was on sabbatical, and the intention was I was supposed to be back in Paris because I was studying French drumming. And I canceled that trip in April, but luckily I was able to do my first trip there in January. So all the research was done. Yeah.
Were you overseas when Rutgers shut down?
No, I was back. We were overseas in January, and you know, we don't know, but we think that when we were in Paris, there was probably COVID there while we were there. I believe there was, but we just didn't know it. It was during the transit strike, so there were no subways available in Paris, which actually turned out to be quite fortuitous because we walked everywhere. We were in the open air. But we came back in late January, and we were in the States when the shutdown occurred.
So I'm sure that you were in connection with your colleagues. What would you say was after talking to them, because we had like a kind of like 2 weeks and had to go online. Everything had to switch. What was the biggest hurdle they had, and what were their best successes, the greatest successes?
Well, I would say from what I know is the biggest hurdle for percussion, and if you go watch this video that I talked about with Mason Bates, the biggest hurdle is instruments. And I think the students would agree. How do you get access to timpani, a 5-octave marimba? These things are massive, bigger than my car. So that was, I would say, the poll, if you took it, would be, instruments' biggest hurdle. Some students figured out creative solutions for that. They knew like a program in the area, like a high school, junior high school, where they could borrow a vibe or a marimba. That will be our biggest hurdle going into the fall, and we're addressing that now. And there are some creative solutions that have been presented by other universities with regards to getting the students instruments. So probably the biggest hurdle was that. I think what I saw with the teaching, there was a lot of creativity about how to deal with those obstacles. I know Dr. Diaz was doing a lot of things with Afro-Cuban percussion, and I'm going to plug this book. He just came out with a revised edition of his book, the Afro-Cuban Handbook, which I've got because that's my next project. And I think he was figuring out ways to teach these Afro-Cuban rhythms online that was, I think, really engaging. And, even if it was virtual, I think people were getting a lot out of that. So I'd say that was one creative solution, to the problems. Got a lot of percussion alumni. Glad I didn't know that when I started playing the snare drum solo.
So, Ashley, do we have any more questions?
Oh, there's Misha.
No faces in the comments from that percussion comment.
Oh.
Misha just said hi.
No other comments, though.
Okay.
For questions.
Well, before we split, I just wanted to thank Linda, Christian, and I want to thank Ashley for inviting me to do this and putting up with my lack of technological skill. So thank you very much.
I just want to thank you, Joe. That was a delightful presentation. I really enjoyed it tonight. And I hope everyone who attended enjoyed it as much as I did. I also thank the Rutgers University Alumni Association for doing these, and they have many more planned. But just being, partial to Mason growth, I want you to know we have about 3 or more faculty who are presenting in the future, and hopefully I will see you all again at those. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Fabulous.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.